Gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you both for being here, and amen, Mr. Chairman. And I'm just so grateful to have both of you serving. It's so reassuring to the American people. And as a veteran myself and as the father of 4 sons who've served overseas in the military, I want to offer condolences to your team on the loss of the 4 American service members who recently passed away with our allies in Lithuania. Staff Sergeant Troy Knutson-Collins, Staff Sergeant Jose Dunez, Staff Sergeant Edvin Franco, and Private First Class Dante Titano. I especially I spent many summers National Guard training at Fort Stewart, and I know the quality and the competence of the people serving there. Reading about how our European allies came together to help the recovery efforts is a strong demonstration of the efforts to stand side by side in times of need. And I'm grateful that our NATO allies are really coming forward. And I particularly appreciate, Madam Secretary, the President's efforts to encourage our allies to reach the 2%, and they are. And but with his encouragement, and so it's so encouraging as we try to achieve peace through strength. And indeed, to me, it's so important because we're in a conflict we have not chosen, and that is dictators with rule of gun invading democracies with rule of law. It began February 24, 2022, war criminal Putin invading Ukraine. Then on October 7, puppets of Iran invaded Israel. It's such a clear connection of the dots, and both of them being backed up by the Chinese Communist Party. And then keeping that in mind with European command, what we see, I believe, is war criminal Putin is making every effort to resurrect the failed Soviet Union. He really never left with Russian troops in Transnistria, Moldova. They were supposed to leave, but they did not, and so they occupy part of Moldova. Additionally, we know they rigged the elections in Belarus. Then there was the invasion of Georgia and the annexation of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and then you had the invasion of Ukraine with tens of thousands of people killed in 2014 and 2022, and then you had the rigging of the national elections October 26 in Georgia, where the effort was made to replace the very courageous President Salome Zvrashvili. And over again we can see, and then we see even more recently the efforts to rig the elections of Romania, but fortunately they were not successful. General Cavoli, you mentioned in your presentation that war criminal Putin is on pace to replace all of the combat material that was damaged or lost throughout its invasion of Ukraine. What are the implications that this new supply of munitions and combat vehicles is helping Russia modernize its military?
That's exactly what it's doing, sir. It's helping to modernize their military. They have very extensive modernization plans and expansion plans. The Russians, about a year and a half ago, announced an intention to grow their armed forces to 1.5 million, up from 900,000, a significant increase, to establish new commands, especially in the ground forces in northeastern part of Europe, that is on the border of NATO with Finland and the Baltics. They're on the path to doing that. They're not going very quickly because they're devoting so much to the effort in Ukraine. We'll see how much effort they'll be able to put into it after the war. It depends largely how the war ends, but that modernization program is intended to go right back and challenge NATO on the borders of NATO.
And indeed, for the United States, how important is it for us to produce conventional combat vehicles for future combat?
Oh, I believe combat vehicles and tanks maintain an important place on the battlefield, and our ability to produce them is going to have a lot to do with our ability to have a strong Army component to our joint force.
And General, I'm very encouraged that actually the Ukrainians have done so well in reducing the capabilities of war criminal Putin. When the dictator Bashar al-Assad of Syria was asking for assistance in November, it wasn't given, and he had to flee to Moscow. And so the people of Ukraine should be given credit that now there's a potential liberation for the people of Syria, and we already know the unintended consequence of what war criminal Putin did of having Finland and Sweden join NATO. So over and over again, it's so encouraging. A key point, too, is NATO countries and the EU provide more aid and have provided more aid than the United States, but thank goodness for President Trump that he's there to provide peace through strength. Thank you.